When I think about my hopes for the future, I think about next year in particular, where it's our 40th year. And it's a little early for me to start banging the drum, but I am going to encourage everybody to start thinking about entering now. Not only clients, but agencies too, because everybody wins when you partner and you tell the world about your great work. What am I excited about for next year? Well, it is the 40th anniversary, 40 years of doing these very prestigious awards. And I want to go bigger and better than ever before. And I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I'm sure we'll have a great plan to have people just start thinking now, tonight, about what they're going to enter is really exciting. And I'm speaking to not only the client side people, because it's about brands, but agencies also are great partners in writing this work. And so collaborating on writing a winning entry that shows off your work, and most importantly, gets recognition for the team who have worked their heart and soul on it, that's a win for everybody.
I think to help companies stand out, they've got to really follow the brief, is the first one. I think it's really important because if you think about the number of entries that judges have, we need to be able to easily compare all of the different entries that come in. And when you go off script, it can be very difficult to compare. So you might not get the recognition for certain points that you want to. Think about the added value that you can add. Think about how the customer has been impacted, how the business has been impacted. And then if they can create that submission within the structure that's been provided, and then put some color around it afterwards, that will really help because it will simplify the judging process and we can compare accordingly.
What makes a good entry for me is one that really shows the complexity of the problem, the scale of the challenge, and really goes into detail about the level of thought that has gone into how best to solve this problem. So clearly laying out what the problem is, size and scale, but then going into the detail of what was actually the process. What did you do? How did it work? What did you reject? What didn't work well? As well as then saying, here's what was great and here's what we did, and here's why it was new, and here's why it was innovative, and here's why we were a bit scared about it and a bit worried about it, but here's the amazing results that we got from it. And that's what I love when you see great marketing work that has all that, and great entries that have all that level of detail in them.
So if you're thinking about entering next year's awards, which I hope you will, I guess what I would say is in terms of what we're looking for in submissions, there are clear criteria. Please do address the criteria, really, really important. Sometimes we don't see that. So address the criteria. Tell your story. We are marketeers. We should be able to tell our story and tell your story well. And obviously and crucially, what were the results? Because ultimately, we're all about the impact, as we've just said. So what was the impact of the activity, whether it was a campaign or it was a branded experience or whatever it may have been, what was the impact it had against the desired objectives going into that?
There's two pieces of advice I would give for entering and winning. Number one is enter because you've got a brilliant story and you've got a brilliant result to talk about. Absolutely number one. But then also really invest in how you tell that story. It's quite evident that when agencies write the entries on behalf of brands, they seem to be more succinct, more visually engaging, probably because they've got more resources and more time to do that. So maybe if you're enter jointly with your agency and really put the time into the story, the succinctness of it and how you visualize it, because those things matter when you're reading 32 entries, one after the other.
Well, my advice to anybody who was looking to enter would be maybe to stand back and really understand the nature of the category they're looking to enter, and really understand what the criteria will be to be successful in that category. As I might have mentioned, it's not easy, and the expectation is high. The bar is set very high, particularly when it comes to things like pushing boundaries, taking risks, and demonstrating an overall contribution to marketing. So what I would say is maybe for people thinking of entering, to actually go right back much earlier into their marketing program and maybe keep some of those things in mind. And maybe instead of just looking at the awards as something to enter when everything is over, is actually something to consider at the very beginning of their marketing program, to try and think, okay, I know I've got some commercial objectives and some brand objectives, but actually, you know, were I really to push the boundary on this and to use the judging criteria as a way of helping maybe to shape how I might go about this, that's really the interesting point in time for me. So in many cases then afterwards, it's a lot easier to sit down and write the case study itself. So in a way, it's to just use the categories and the criteria as an aid really to really motivate people to push the boundaries on the marketing program that they're setting out to undertake. I know, indeed, and that's absolutely the point. Like, instead of the award consideration to be after the fact, really, when we all sit down to look at a marketing program, you really want to deliver something amazing, and you really want it to be the best of the best, and that's really what the Marketing Society Awards are looking for. So in many ways, it's to just bring that mindset to the planning and the execution of the campaign, such that when you then sit down afterwards, you know, it's a much easier case study to write, and all of those criteria, you know, have been considered.
The advice I would give to a brand thinking of applying: answer the questions. Remember that a judge will be reading with the criteria next to them, so we'll be looking to mark you against criteria. I've made the mistake in the past of entering awards and writing a brilliant story. A brilliant story is great, that captures you as a marketer. We like, you know, strong narratives, but also remember when someone's going, how can I mark you out of 10 for creative strategy or, you know, results, then actually they're looking for evidence for that. So write your story, but also really coldly go, have I made it as easy as possible for a judge who's probably reading 30 papers at 10 o'clock at night, because we're all quite busy. How can I make that really easy? So don't get lost in your narrative too much.
So if I was going to advise anyone who's thinking about entering for the 40th anniversary Marketing Society Awards, first of all, I'd say definitely have a go. There is a lot higher chance to win than often people think. And do read very, very carefully, is the second thing I would say, the different award categories, because there is a different distribution of entries across different awards, and it is definitely worth applying and putting your work forward in different ways across different categories. And the third one is really read the brief on the submission. So having judged the process, those briefs which conform really well to answering the questions set, of course, do tend to do better than those which are more vague. So the more you can put down, the more you can stretch yourself in your response and really answer those questions, the better it is. And good luck.